What if the Union had laser weapons during the American Civil War? The boring answer is they vaporize the Confederacy in 6 weeks and everyone goes home. But that's the worst version of this story. Because here's the thing about giving one side God-tier technology in a war where both sides are starving, bleeding, and running out of everything, it doesn't just change who wins, it changes how fast they run out of miracles. Let's be specific. It's July 1863. Gettysburg just happened. The Union gets exactly 50 directed energy weapons, think modern tactical lasers, that can burn through steel at 500 meters, powered by portable generators. They're distributed to key regiments, 10 to the Army of the Potomac, 20 to Sherman's Western forces, 20 held in reserve. The Confederacy gets nothing, no foreign intervention, no magic Confederate superweapon to balance it out. Here are the rules. The lasers work perfectly, no overheating, no weather interference. But they need fuel. Each generator runs 8 hours on a full tank of kerosene sourced through the same slow, expensive logistics network the Union already has. Each laser fires continuously for 90 seconds before cooldown. They're devastating against fortifications, cavalry charges, and massed infantry. They're useless against guerrillas in the woods, supply raids at night, or the general chaos of a battlefield where your biggest enemy is dysentery. So what happens? The first deployment is at Chickamauga in September 1863. The Union sets up 3 lasers on high ground. When Longstreet's corps charges across the open field, the lasers open up. Just a hum, then a streak of invisible light that turns men into smoke. In 90 seconds, they carve through 400 charging soldiers. The Confederate line breaks not because they're cowards, but because half don't understand what just killed their friends, and the other half think God is intervening. The battle becomes a stalemate. The Union holds Chattanooga. Sherman gets his supply line. But here's what matters. Those 3 lasers burned through 6 tanks of kerosene in one afternoon. The Union had to pull 2 supply wagons off food duty just to keep them running. And Chickamauga is just one battlefield. The Confederacy has 1,000 miles of front line. By October, the Union realizes what they've actually been given, a weapon so powerful it wins every battle it's in, and so expensive it can't be in every battle. They start treating the lasers like artillery, concentrate them at decisive points, move them slowly, protect them obsessively. Each generator costs as much as 50 rifles. Losing one to a cavalry raid would be a disaster. Sherman's march to the sea in late 1864 becomes the showcase. He takes 10 lasers south, cutting a path from Atlanta to Savannah. Confederate fortifications that would have taken days to bombard get melted in minutes. At Griswoldville, a single laser cuts down an entire Georgia militia charge before they get within musket range. It's efficient, it's horrifying, and it's not enough. Because while Sherman's lasers are burning through Georgia, Nathan Bedford Forrest is in Tennessee, destroying his supply line. The Confederacy figures out the counter-doctrine in 6 weeks. Don't fight the lasers. Fight the fuel. Raid the convoys. Burn the kerosene depots. Force the Union to choose between feeding their men and feeding their superweapons. By December, Sherman's running 2 lasers instead of 10 because the other 8 are sitting in Atlanta with empty tanks waiting for resupply convoys that keep getting ambushed. The Confederacy doesn't win battles anymore. They just make the Union win slower. And slower is expensive. The Union's burning through kerosene stockpiles meant for locomotives and lamps. Factories in Pennsylvania are retooling to produce more, but it takes time. Every laser that goes silent is a propaganda gift. See, their devil weapons run dry. God is on our side. The war doesn't end in 1865. It ends in early 1866 because the lasers compress the timeline just enough to matter.
Lee still surrenders at Appomattox, but to a Union army that's exhausted, not from fighting, but from feeding a logistics beast twice as hungry as it should be. The final Confederate holdouts in Texas don't surrender to lasers. They surrender to the reality that the Union has enough industrial capacity to waste it on expensive toys. Let's talk numbers. Historically, the Civil War killed about 620,000 soldiers. In this version, maybe 580,000. The lasers save lives in the big set-piece battles Chickamauga, Griswoldville, Petersburg, but they don't save lives in the guerrilla fights, the prison camps, the disease outbreaks, or the slow collapse of Southern infrastructure. War is a math problem where most of the variables aren't bullets. Here's the twist: the lasers change the optics of the war more than the outcome. In our timeline, the Union won because they had more men, more factories, more rail lines, and more food.
The Confederacy was always going to lose. The lasers turned that slow grind into a highlight reel. Suddenly, it looks like technology won the war. And that becomes the story people remember. Reconstruction gets weirder. The South doesn't just resent losing, they resent losing to machines they didn't understand. The Lost Cause mythology gets a sci-fi twist. We were betrayed by Yankee sorcery. Veterans coming home with stories about invisible fire beams risk being dismissed as traumatized or lying, making reconciliation harder. Meanwhile, the Union military brass obsesses over directed energy weapons, dumping money into laser research by 1870 that could have gone into literally anything else. The lesson here isn't that technology is useless, it's that technology is a multiplier, not a replacement. The Union won the Civil War because they had the farms, the forges, the railroads, and the political will to keep grinding. The lasers let them grind faster. They turned bloody stalemates into one-sided massacres. But they didn't change the fact that wars are won in the unsexy places: the fuel depots, the supply wagons, the decision to keep fighting when your capital's in ruins. The Confederacy could see the beams. They just couldn't stop the trains. So here's the question. If you're Lincoln in 1863 and someone hands you 50 laser rifles, do you take them? Knowing they'll shorten the war by maybe 6 months, cost a fortune in fuel, and give your enemy a story about how you cheated? Or do you stick with the boring plan: blockade, attrition, wait for the South to starve? Maybe the real cheat code was always the same: logistics, patience, and keeping your side fed while the other side eats its horses. What do you think? Drop your answer below, and if you want more cursed alternate history, check out What Happens If Rome Had Machine Guns.